Hi and welcome. You are listening to the Get Into Your Skin podcast, where we talk anything and everything skincare and mental health. Each week, we will explore inner and outer beauty at the intersection of a medically informed point of view and the curiosity of the skincare amateur. Speaking of which, I am one of your hosts, Isabel Iturios, the representative of the lay audience for this hour. And I'm excited to introduce my co-host, Dr. Kumar Naran, a dermatology resident in Chicago. Hi, Kumar.
Hi there.
I would also like to introduce a very special guest for this episode, my sister, Nuria. I don't know if you wanted to be anonymous, but you're not. Hi, Nuria, and welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So we wanted to have a follow-up episode on our acne episode. I think we promised this interview. I think when Kumar and I discuss acne, it can be very factual and hopefully informative. But like we discussed on the acne episode, the lived experience of having acne is not something we can directly talk about. And we would like to ask you some very personal questions to get at these issues that we know a lot of other people are dealing with, and hear from a patient who deals with the issue on a daily basis. Is that okay?
Yeah, sounds good. Let's do it.
Okay. So I want to know when and how you identified that you had a problem with your skin. Like, was it something that someone said to you? Did you notice it? Was it representations in the media?
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever really thought about that. And I don't think I can think of an exact moment or something that was said or something I realized. I think it was definitely in my early teenager years, maybe 13, 14 years old. I think I just remember kind of like looking back, I had acne, just kind of started struggling with it. And noticing it obviously on my face, like pimples or breakouts. And I think I recognized it was something that not every teenager it was experiencing. I think I recognized that some of my peers had it as well, but not all. And that I just knew it wasn't something desirable, and like wasn't considered aesthetically pleasing or beautiful or whatever. That I knew it was a problem, I guess, but I can't think of an exact moment. I just think it just happened, I guess. I don't know.
Were there any moments when you were scarred or you looked in the mirror and you remember being terrified of your acne?
I don't think there's anything that was that intense for me. I also wonder, I think it was very gradual, right? So, I think there's definitely points in time where it was more severe and I was a little more distraught about it than others, because it just changed over time. But yeah, I'm trying to think back, and it was always something that was just kind of there and something that I knew I had to deal with and something that I knew was a problem. I don't think I was like that, it didn't cause me that much like distress or anything. It was just kind of like, oh, there's this problem I have, I need to like keep working on, kind of thing. I don't know if that makes sense.
I feel like at that age we all start getting pimples, so I'm like curious, was it that you saw, okay, everyone has pimples, but other people have more and other people have less, and that's kind of how you put yourself in this spectrum?
Kind of, yeah. I definitely felt like I was on the end that had more, or like had it was more noticeable. And then I think, like you said, all your friends start having them, you start going through puberty, and it's like, oh, like, girls discuss like, oh, I got a pimple because of my period. Like, I kind of recognized that my acne was more severe than that, or like my problem was more severe than that. I think it goes into like, that's why and I'm trying to remember, I don't even remember if I was the one that went to my mom and was like, I need medical, like I want that, or my mom was like, let's take you to a dermatologist. I almost want to say it was her that was like, let's go kind of get a medical opinion on this. But I feel bad, I kind of like don't remember. It was like an ongoing thing.
I actually think it's like more normal that you don't remember. It kind of speaks to how ingrained these things are. I think you talking about your acne makes me think of like how I felt about my weight at the time. It's like no one ever told me directly like fat is bad or anything like that. But you kind of just start your comparing, and you just know from like all the messages around you, from the people, the actresses on the OC don't have acne, like, or they're all skinny. Like, I think it kind of speaks to just like it wasn't even like a conscientious thing that someone had to say like this is an issue. That's why it's like not like a traumatic moment or anything like that. It's just like we live in that sea, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think I also recognize that and this sounds so bad, but out of the problems that you could have as a teenager, like dealing with weight issues or dealing with like maybe failing classes, or like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of, or maybe like not being popular or not having friends, or I feel like I recognize that like acne was also not the worst. I was kind of like, well, I have other things going for me. Like, I'm not that distraught about it, but I want to fix it. So it was like, it wasn't like, I didn't feel like it was holding me back from anything. It's also something you can kind of, and maybe mine wasn't as severe, or I don't know. I don't even know what it would classify as. I think mine was like medium to like borderline severe, I want to say. I would also feel like I could maybe cover it with makeup, or I don't know. I feel like I always felt like I could solve it in a way, like eventually. So,
and just a little like, I think we talk a lot about how acne can cause depression and anxiety, or whether it's like a feedback loop, and you don't have to justify having like other protective factors. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you did have a good self-esteem. Like, I feel like not everyone who has acne is going to experience the same amount of shame just because you had all these other good things going for you.
Yeah. And maybe, and also I was younger, so I feel like I was just like less worried. I almost will say, and we can kind of go into how that happened, but like the recent acne that I had like this past year, I would say that was probably more impactful on my mental health than back when I was like 16. I think that one actually cost me like more shame now. And it was like leading up to, I'm living with my now husband, and like, I feel like he's like close to me every day. And I was like, I don't even want you to like be close to me, because I just don't feel in a good space, like with my face, or like was leading up to the wedding, like very stressed out about that and the photos and all that pressure. So anyway, I almost feel like on the kind of mental health side, like it was probably more of it caused more of that anxiety in the latest sort of breakout or whatever. I don't know what it's called, but yeah.
I think that's a really interesting place to be, preparing for a wedding. What was that like with your skincare and anxiety about it, or throughout the wedding, the whole process?
Yeah, so I think the timing worked out interestingly, and I'll just get into like kind of this recent like issue with acne. So I maybe about 2 years ago now, I decided to change my birth control. And I've been on the combination pill for years, probably like 8 years or something. And I think my acne was kind of like, it was controlled. Like, I just had a few breakouts here and there, but I don't remember having any big issues the last like 5 to 7 years. And then I decided to change it. And it was like, the 2 years before my wedding. And I didn't really have a big reason. I thought it would be easier than taking a pill every day. I just felt like, okay, less maintenance on that.
Switch to what?
To the IUD, to the hormonal IUD. So anyway, now looking back, but like what happened was, a year and a half ago, I started getting really bad acne, and just like these cysts that I don't remember having before. And it was right in like kind of the lower half of my face, like my chin, my cheeks. And I just couldn't figure out like what was happening. Like, and it's also like we were talking before, it's like a gradual thing. It's not like all of a sudden I'm covered and I'm like, oh my God, what happened? It was gradual. So then 6 months in, I'm like, it's been 6 months of this, like what is happening? And it all lined up with the wedding, right? So like now I'm 8 to 10 months pre-wedding, and I'm dealing with like terrible cysts on my face. So then it was this pressure of like, I need to fix this, and I have a timeline, right? It needs to be fixed by X date, which I'd never felt like I had before. So then I started doing just like trying different things. Like that's when I talked to Kumar about like, hey, just can you come look at my face and like tell me what's going on? And I think at that point when you looked at me, it probably wasn't that bad, but you did recommend the regimen. I didn't have a skincare regimen. So I literally just washed my face
With what?
day and night with
Okay.
Cetaphil.
Okay.
Used one of those like Neutrogena scrubs or whatever because the beads feel good, like no reason at all. And that's it. That's really it. Like I didn't have anything. So when Kumar saw me, he was just like, okay, start doing Retin-A, you know, like recommendations around cleansers, like sunscreen, the biggest thing, you know, vitamin C serum.
Not as many beads.
Yeah. And then I started just doing more research and like, I think trying out serums or trying out toners or things, and then trying out like facials, which some of them like went really badly. They like did really intense extractions on my face that I don't think it didn't feel good. My skin was just like not in a good place after some of those. And then I just continued to do research. I realized that one of the most common side effects of the hormonal IUD is acne. So anyway, I was like, okay, this is the only kind of variable that has changed in my life in the past, like, you know, 8 years. So I kind of self-diagnosed a little bit and decided I wanted to like change it. So like right in the 6 months leading up to the wedding, I changed my birth control. I changed my kind of skincare routine. I started taking doxycycline, the antibiotics. Like I went to a dermatologist. They prescribed that. They prescribed clindamycin. They prescribed like all this stuff, and then I got this like other facial that was really great that we can talk about. But it was stressful. It was kind of like crunch time. I need to do everything, which didn't allow me. I feel like didn't allow me to like figure out like if I could change one variable, like what's the result. I just changed like 8 of them. Just because I felt like I was under pressure. And I think there is a lot of pressure obviously for brides to look perfect. It's the best day, the best day of your life. You need to look amazing. Like obviously weight, right? You want to lose 5 pounds and like
You're going to use these photos for the next 25 years.
Yeah, you got to look good for the Instagram. So yeah, there was a lot of pressure, and I felt like that was the one thing. I mean, I did other things. I got Botox on my forehead. I fixed my teeth. I was trying to like eat healthy, you know, in general, and like just kind of like being like, what are all the little improvements they have to make on yourself before this day, which is kind of weird to think about.
What about like going into therapy? No, I'm kidding. It's just physical improvements, right? It's kind of what I'm
It
getting
doesn't
at.
matter how you feel inside.
No.
It's how you look.
Well, you absolutely nailed it. I think you looked beautiful at the wedding and so clear. So all of that 6 months of work paid off. And nobody knew, which is a hidden secret. So I remember talking to you, and you are very successful in Silicon Valley and very in the know, and you're in tech. And I was amazed by how little that you had put into your skincare, because usually those coincide with each other. Is if you are in the know in social media and all, that you are aware of skincare, especially as a young woman in this day and age. And so it was amazing how you've gotten so far, and you had good skin. It was amazing how you've gotten so far without it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I kind of saw as like, okay, when I was a teenager, I fixed the acne issue. Like I took Accutane for a while, and that was what really made it go away when I was in my like teenage years. And then I think, I don't know, like in college it just was not a priority, and I also didn't have the financial means to like invest into skincare, and just and then I think, I don't know, I think it
living with boys mostly.
I was gonna say I lived with 3 guys for 4.5 years, and I think I was just like, that was not a thing that was talked about, or maybe that's just not the types of accounts I followed on social. My priorities were working, kind of advancing in my career, and then like whatever time I had left was like partying or going to shows or traveling. And I think like once it came like wedding time, almost maybe like when I got engaged like 2 years ago, it was like, okay, what do I need to do to like look my best? And then I started almost like worrying about it. And then it coincided with like the hormonal acne. So yeah, you're right. It's just not a thing that I was kind of like interested in a weird way, even though I dealt with like skin issues in the past. I've never had the like, I don't know, I've heard Isabel talk about like, I want to look glowy and dewy and whatever. It's like, I want to look good, but I don't know if I like ever wanted that before. I don't know. I was more worried, I think, about maybe being fit, like physically, like going to the gym and like, you know, looking a certain way in my clothing more than like my skin, I think. I don't know why.
I do think that like the popularization of like the skincare thing is more recent. I do think it might, not to be like you're old, but like it is sort of like the Gen Zs are kind of like really in the know. It kind of has replaced, I'm not gonna say replaced, but like the diet culture thing, I think a lot of people my age are rejecting, but we are embracing this whole other industry that's kind of like still focused on beauty and appearances and kind of masquerading as health. And I think we've talked about that a lot, that you're like, there's definitely products that dermatologists recommend, but there's a lot of, we call it voodoo. So it's like, it is similar to like the diet industry, that it's sort of like, we promote beauty by saying that it is health. And now it's kind of happening on the skincare world. But I will say it's like, I see it mostly on TikTok, which is, you know, more of a Gen Z app. You still haven't downloaded it, even though I send you so many. Nope. And Instagram too. But I did want to ask Kumar, like, is there a difference in this hormonal acne, like how it presents versus the more teenager acne?
Just how it looks
or
physically,
just
or
how you treat it, the causes, like, is it just?
Yeah, I think, and maybe let me know if this answers the question, but I think when I was dealing with it as like a teenager, young adult, whatever, I was always told like, this is just part of your genetics, hormones, it's normal. A lot of teenagers go through it. And I remember the dermatologist that I went to back in the day, the one that prescribed the Accutane, he always said, by 25, this will no longer be an issue. Like, you're going to be done. This is just like something you have to deal with right now. 25, done. And I remember my mom always repeated it, like, just have to wait until you're 25. Like, it seems so arbitrary. And then when I had it, you know, being 29 or 30, I was like, wait, this is not supposed to be happening right now. So I think that was the biggest shock. I was like, why am I dealing with this if I'm 30? And then, and I think it's also, and I don't know, I mean, Kumar, you probably have a better answer on like the medical, like, is that true? Like the 25-year-old thing. But then when I started doing research around the IUD, I remember this podcast that had a dermatologist on, and they were talking about, it was a bride's podcast. They were talking about skincare to prepare for your wedding. And then she was talking about other stuff, but then she touched on like, hey, like, I joke around that like OBGYNs have me in business because an IUD is new. It came out the last, 5 years. All these women in their late 20s and early 30s are getting the IUD. Now they're back at the dermatologist with acne. And that's like a light bulb went off, like a light of like, oh my God, this is it. Like, that's why I'm dealing with it. And anyway, I think it was just kind of more like, to go back to it, it was harder to accept having acne at 30. So I think that was a little harder, and it does look a little different as well. Like, I think just like the areas where you have it as a teenager, it's like your forehead, your nose, there's like little pimples and blackheads. And this was like larger cysts on the side of my face that, I don't know, just seemed more terrible to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I bet. Well, there's a huge level of commiseration when you're a teenager and you have acne. Everybody has acne. It doesn't feel abnormal. And sometimes you feel isolated, but you don't feel weird. You feel like you're going through it and it's your turn. When you're an adult, it's so difficult because, yes, I was told the same thing, that you'd be done by 25. And I had acne in my late 20s, mid 20s, until I hammered down a skincare regimen. And I think that is a common saying that you give people Accutane and it holds them over for 10 years. And at that point, they'll be over their acne. But we were talking about it last time that there is an increasing number, especially women, who have acne in their late 30s, 40s. And I think it's highly due to stress, right? And your Mirena, your IUD, that is going to be providing a lot of fluctuations in your hormones, right? That is introducing hormones to your system. It is regulating the hormones you already have. You get these cystic acne bumps on the jaw area for hormonal acne, and you have so little control over it because it changes all the time. I think as a teenager, like you said, Nuria, you have acne that's predictable. It's in the glabellar region, the forehead, the cheeks, and it makes sense. It's like, okay, I'm going to have this for a while and then it goes away for a few months. But when you're older, it feels like you have a lot less control.
Yeah, totally.
So you went to your dermatologist and you said, this is what I think I have. It's the IUD, right?
Yeah, basically. And at that point, I had already gone to my gynecologist first to take it out.
Okay.
I was like, this is it. I'm taking it out. And when I went to switch from the pill to the IUD, I was just like, hey, this seems more convenient. They were like, great. I don't know and it felt like there's some incentive to get you on the IUD. I don't know. I guess the doctor recommends like, do what you want to do. Want me to get you an IUD? We'll do it. But there was no.
Did they discuss side effects at all?
No, I mean, they give you a sheet, right? And here, read it. Here are the side effects. I would have like known if she said acne was a side effect. So I would have been like, okay, never mind. Like I've been there, done that. And I've also heard, hey, when you're on the pill, it actually helps with your acne a lot of times, right? So that I'm sure had been helping. So this is like, okay, now I have the IUD, I've had acne. I actually did talk to a OBGYN who was not the one that gave me the IUD back in the first place, who's been the most awesome, thorough, lovely person I've ever talked to. And I hope she doesn't leave my care. But she was so thorough. She asked about my history with acne as a teenager. She asked about my, sexual history or like other health questions. Like she was like extremely thorough. And after kind of hearing like how that my skin was during the years where I had the pill and then the changes recently and everything, she was basically like, based on everything you've told me, this is the one thing that has changed. So I could bet anything that it's that. And she explained a little bit about the differences in hormones between the Mirena and the combination pill. So she was like, this is like, she recommended going back on the pill without taking the IUD out because it added this hormone. It was also right in the middle of COVID. So she was like, I'm sure you don't want to like come in if it's not necessary. So then I was on the 2 birth controls actually for like a few months. And then it did start getting better. Like it was very gradual, but it was a little better. So then I was like, okay, this is it. I went back, took the IUD out, and then went to a dermatologist and said like, this is what has happened, but I'm getting married in 4 months. So it's not happening fast enough. And then that's when she said, I was already on Retin-A and clindamycin. And, kind of talked to her about my regimen. She said that sounded good. And then she recommended, okay, if you want to speed it up, she prescribed the doxycycline. And that cleared up pretty much in the past month before the wedding. So
at any point, it was never, the doctors never doubted. Oh, okay.
Well, first, it was never brought up that
right.
was a side effect. And then second, yeah, no one ever said, they were like, oh yeah, that sounds right. And yeah, it's
funny. It's funny when you have those reactions. Sometimes they're like, sure, you're right, go ahead. And like, I think I talked about this in the episode 2, visiting the dermatologist. I was like, I have I forget what it was called, the thing on my face. Yeah. And they're like, sure, didn't even look at it. And you're kind of like, it's nice because they're trusting that you did your research. You come in and you're like, know the big words or whatever. But it is sometimes like, wait, you went to school for so many years. You want to
it was not even, I mean, at that point I wasn't even like, oh, you're just taking what I'm saying. It was more like, I
You know.
wish I didn't had to do this for the past year and a half of me finding this out by experiencing this, then doing the research, then like kind of trying to go back, because it's hard to remember like what has happened. So it's like, it's more like, I wish someone would have told me in the beginning that this was a side effect, so then none of this would have happened, right? So
Wait,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. So I think it's like, yes, you shouldn't have had to do that. And you're also in like, I'm going to use the word privileged position, because you have the resources to do it. You have the time. Like, I'm just thinking of like all these other women who have kids or who, like just can't take the time out of their day to go to the dermatologist, go back to the gynecologist, do the research, or who just think like, I guess this is what I'm dealing with now. It sucks that like their experiences is going to be so different. And I don't know if it's a matter of maybe the gynecologist, like you said, having, I don't know, like some financial incentive to prescribe something, or just not being very well educated on the effects.
I think it just felt more transactional, right? Like it's just that they weren't being super thorough and maybe asking me like what my past history was to then say, okay, maybe based on the fact that you've had acne before, like this could be a more possible side effect. Because they're like, yeah, it could be, but it also could not be, right? So
it just
I don't
feels
know.
a lot. Yeah.
I was just gonna say on your point around like the privilege part, for lack of a better word, like that's something that I dealt with as well. Is like I felt kind of guilty that I was so distraught about my acne, because it's like, okay, this is my biggest problem right now. And it's like, obviously I have a job, I have like other things, like it's like, it feels, I felt like a little brat being like, I have a pimple, right? And like being super distraught about it. When there's people that have food insecurity or like no jobs, or I mean, not to get like on that, but yeah, that literally, like the acne on someone's face would be probably the number very low on the priority list if I had other issues.
I didn't mean privilege that like that was the issue you were dealing with. Like, it's so hard to ask you, Nuria, to worry about the people who don't have jobs during COVID. Like, there's definitely like things you can donate to, but that's like a systemic problem. Like, I think it's fine that you were worrying about your acne if I mean, we've talked about this. Like, it's your face, is what you show to the world. It's like, so there's no separating your skin from who you are in your mind. Like, it's just part of your identity. Like, I was just saying privilege that you have the medical literacy to go online and like read articles that talk about the connection between an IUD and acne. But I was just going to say, like, and maybe Kumar, you can talk a little bit about what is happening here, but it does feel like when you went and asked for the IUD and they were like, sure, here you go. When I go in for like my antidepressants, they don't really discuss the side effects like at all. I have to go in and I'm like, oh, this isn't working. I think I need to switch. And it's like, they ask me, oh, do you want to switch to this? And I have to fight really hard to say, what are the side effects? Like, okay, the side effect of this is weight gain. I have a history of eating disorders. Like, that's probably not the best. Like, you have to just like come in already knowing a whole bunch. And it's a little taxing, because you're like, I'm the patient. You went to school for 5,000 years. Like, can you just like give me all the information, and not expect me to like know? But it is in our own benefit to like do our research before going into the doctor.
Yeah, you have to. You have to protect yourself, right? And as a person, regardless of whoever you're going to, they're going to miss something. You're going to assume that, and just because they're human, they're going to make mistakes. But also the system, right? You're set up to fail with such short amount of time. They have to funnel you through and get to the next person, and also make you happy. And doing that in such a short amount of time is near impossible. And so we also forget how powerful these drugs are. We hand them out like candy. People are taking them and they're demanding them, but they will get you very fast to where you want to go. But it will take a toll no matter what their side effects. I think doxycycline, I prescribe it 20, 30 times a day. I think it is an incredible drug. It is an antibiotic. For acne, we use it at a sub antimicrobial dose. And so it doesn't build resistance, but it also takes care of the acne. And so it's wonderful for short periods of time, right? It's like taking an Advil or an ibuprofen for acne. Can't do it forever, but great for a short period of time. But when I hand it out, I tell people that the side effect most common is gastric distress. And so you might have diarrhea, you might have vomiting. You could take it with food, it might make it better, it might not. And then you got to decide, is it worth it? Right? If you have something that needs to be treated like an infection with doxycycline, it is worth it most often. But with acne, it's up to you. Is it worth it to you to fix this for your wedding? But then you can't really put down Chipotle and keep it in. Maybe you couldn't do that anyway, but it's going to make it worse, right? And so we have to play around with those ideas. And I think the medical community has to present it in that way. I think the medical community is very scared to tell you about all the side effects because there's something called nocebo, which is you're more likely to get the side effects if I list all of them. Because you're going to happen to have a stomach ache one day after you had bad Chinese food. And then you're gonna be like, well, I've been taking these pills for a year. It must be the pills. And people, you never know how they're gonna feel one day to the next. And with medication, again, they're very powerful and it can be the pills, right? And so I think it should be presented as, here's a list, here's what's most common. If you get it, this is what we can do. And if you get it, this is how severe you can expect it to be. And if it's not, then it's probably something else, right? And that takes time and effort and patience, and it's hard to expect, unfortunately, but it should be expected.
Yeah, I think
yeah,
I think that'd be helpful. It's like for the doctor to have that conversation. I think sometimes it feels like they're just not having it, and I think they assume if you're going in saying I have this problem, I need birth control or I need to get rid of my acne. It's like, okay, let's solve that. But then if they was presented as like, hey, I know you want birth control, but like here are all the possible side effects, acne might be one of them. Maybe most women will be like, that's okay. I'm willing to take that risk. I'm trying to like that trade-off is good for me. But then I think someone like me or the history or like Isabel was saying, like with her experience with antidepressants, like you say, actually, that's a red flag for me. Like I'm going to go this other route. Like I think, but most, not all, but I think it feels like a lot of times the doctor doesn't take the time, like you said, to kind of lay all that out and then have you make a more informed decision for yourself. Because it's okay. They
Yeah.
don't have to know all your medical history, but you kind of, you know yourself to a certain extent too. So it's kind of like then that's why the doctors where I've had those really thorough conversations, like they stand out. I like feel so much better. I feel like I was listened to. I also feel like they actually gave me advice because I like it when they tell me like, based on all of this, here's my recommendation, but here's also option B and C, right? Not just saying, well, what do you want? Right. Or here's the only thing, right? It's kind of that back and forth kind of relationship it feels great when you have that. And I would also probably say that the outcome is better for you. So
I have a question. I know it has a lot to do with the system. I know Kaiser is like you kind of make an appointment, you have an issue, but how often do you ask people to come back just for like a follow-up?
really
Just to
good
see
question.
like how it's going.
I think every patient needs a follow-up, regardless of what you have. Even if it's something that is completely untreatable, which we see all the time in dermatology, it's like, oh, well, you're going to get these bumps now that you're 80 years old. You still deserve a follow-up just in case something else comes up, just in case we miss something, for some peace of mind. I encountered a physician recently who I've never heard anyone do this, where he tells his patients, this is going to require 3 visits in minimum. And if you do not want to do those 3 visits, go to someone else because we cannot fix this before then. And I think acne is one of those where I don't know anybody who can get their acne fixed in under 2 visits. And so that should be an expectation you set early. Look, it's going to take at least 2 months and 2 or 3 visits. If you don't want to do that, you're looking for something I can't provide. And I think that's a really good setting expectations, again, coming back to that and being honest and hoping that they don't get scared. And if they do, then it's your job or my job to calm them down by providing information. And that's all you can do, right? I don't sell medicine. You're not buying medicine. It's just an informational transaction where I'm providing as much information as I can in the way that's best for you. And that's where I think your preferences come in, right? It's that you have to give them the context to provide information. And I think that's where good doctors in an area like you're talking about shine, right? And now there's a lot of, I would say, medical professionals that are being pumped out in order to fill the need of our growing society. And it's hard to say who is qualified to treat you and who is actually going to listen to you in a stressful system. And so I've been told that good doctors do not have trouble finding good patients, because I think good patients and all patients can recognize good doctors and could recognize good medical professionals. And you want to go back to those.
Yeah, I'm curious too, because it's hard to expect doctors to know everything, right? But especially like I'm thinking about doctors who haven't taken the medication, right? Like I had this issue with my antidepressants that I currently take, that if I miss a dose, I have horrible nightmares. And it's when you hear nightmares, it sounds like just, oh, a nightmare. No, it's horrific. And I can't expect my doctor to know what that is about. But if there was a system, like you said, like, hey, this is going to require 3 follow-ups, and I'm going to ask you, how are you feeling? Did you notice anything where, like, if Nuria had a 3-month follow-up appointment, hey, like, I have this acne that's starting to show up, like, there would have been a follow-up asking questions. And then that particular doctor might be able to say, like, to the next person who comes in, like, oh, this might be a side effect because you're asking the questions. But it sounds like they just gave you an ID and send you on your way. And then it's on you to make the appointment if you identify that something's off, B, connected to the new medication or to the new device or whatever, and then 3, like, actually go ahead and make the appointment.
Yeah, and if you have other options, if you have other options maybe it's too, right? You want to know.
Maybe it's an issue for certain medical plans, like a Kaiser, right? I don't know how others might be, but yeah, there's very little of that follow-up a lot of times. And even I think it doesn't have to be a visit. Like I'm pretty tech savvy. I use the messaging platform a lot. So like sometimes the doctor will send me like, hey, I sometimes send them questions through that. Or like if they say, hey, how are you feeling? Like, here are some questions. Like I'm happy to fill it out and kind of have that conversation over a different medium, right, too. So I don't know.
Yeah, and it depends on the population too. Like to me, you ask me, how are you feeling? And I will tell you everything. But I'm sure some people are like, fine. Like, yeah, especially people who don't have that many interactions with doctors. Like there's a huge like class barrier when it comes to that. Like lower class patients don't ask as many questions. According to the sociological literature, I don't know what you think, but it is more of a, oh, this is the authority. I take the information. I don't ask as many questions or make as many demands. And what is it? The squeaky wheel gets the oil. Is that the saying?
Like I don't remember. It's just...
be a squeaky patient.
Yeah. And that's actually now it reminds me, when I initially wanted to see a dermatologist, this past time, I emailed my primary care physician and said, hey, I want to see a dermatologist. I believe I need a referral. I can't just, schedule it on the dermatology department for some reason. So she goes, what's the issue? I explained, this is all over email. And then she goes, okay, well, I would recommend, trying doxycycline, and you're already on Retin-A, blah, blah, blah. So I remember feeling like, okay, you're not a dermatologist, you're prescribing me an antibiotic, and you haven't seen my face. Like, what? I was like, am I missing something here? Like, why is my primary care physician that I haven't seen in years in person, she didn't ask for photos or anything, is already saying like, I'm going to prescribe you an antibiotic. So I pushed back. I said, hey, I mean, I phrased it in a way, but I was trying to say like, no offense, but like, you haven't seen my face, you're not a dermatologist. I really want a dermatologist's opinion on this, and I would like for someone to see my face. And then, I mean, I felt kind of dumb after, because the dermatologist did prescribe the doxy, right? I guess that's probably the first thing you do, but I don't know. I still felt like, okay, I had a video chat with her and she gave other tips and things, and like, kind of took more time. I felt more heard and felt more confident about taking the doxy for those 2 months before the wedding. But that was the first step, was the primary care physician over email to just prescribe me something without seeing me. So I felt that didn't feel good.
You know, when you go to a lot of companies online, they have a chat bot and they try to answer as many questions as they can. Or when you call them, they have something automated and you want to keep hitting 0. And nowadays you're not allowed to, because sometimes for maybe, I don't know what percentage of people that works, but for most people in any field, like if I call an airlines, I want to be heard. I want to know, what are my options? Am I getting the best option for my situation, right? It's because I'm taking the time to call because I'm concerned about this. I want to know that somebody has considered all the possibilities and considered my feelings and has moved forward responsibly.
Yeah, and with healthcare, that's the last thing you want to feel, like an automated bot, right? Like if I would need customer service for whatever, my internet, sure, but like this is about my health. Like I don't want the blanket template response, right? I want to, like you said, I want to have the conversation.
I wonder too, there should be a study, I'm sure there is, of like, because you said like statistically maybe it does take care of a lot of people's questions, but is it worth the anger now that you're like, I think it might just like do away with all of the experience.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, that's another issue.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking like, yeah, I don't know, but it's that way with the whole system. Like not just Kaiser, I think the whole healthcare thing.
I mean, and yeah, we could get into that. And Andrew, my husband now, works in healthcare too, and like we talk about it all the time. It's like it's because of the incentives, right? We're going for quantity over like focusing on outcomes,
circumcisions,
which is what we're trying to, which is
too
what
many.
ideally will change at some point. But yeah.
I'm curious because I think when we had first talked about your acne, you had been trying Curology or another similar platform. And so, you know, we're talking about blanket template responses, and that seems to be what you get in a lot of these companies. How did you feel with those experiences versus going to your derm and so on?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think those are always attractive because they kind of present it as like, you know, get rid of your acne in 30 days. Like what, I mean, I'm even thinking back in the day, I tried Proactive. Do you remember that one? That was like the one on the TV, like all the time, like,
and the shopping
Proactive.
malls.
You get this thing, they have the little booths. Like I tried it, didn't really solve anything. Like I still went back and got Accutane. But it kind of like, it almost like makes you feel good that you're trying it, I guess, in a weird way. It's like, okay, I'm doing something about it. Like they said that it works for everyone. Great. And then, yeah, I tried Curology. There's a few out there like Hims and other different kinds of companies like that. I think there's a few skincare ones too. And the way they market it is not like, here's a one size fits all solution. They say like, we're gonna, you know, curate this formula based on this questionnaire that you can fill in 5 minutes. And we do have, you know, dermatologists that, you know, make this recommendation. So anyway, I think, I mean, I'm a huge consumer and shopper. Like I love the thing of like, make a quiz and we'll recommend the best hair product for you. Or like, I love renting clothes and building my boxes and getting like makeup or whatever. So this is kind of the same. Like it feels
Your
fun.
Instagram's favorite type of customer.
Oh, yeah. Totally. Yeah. So this felt the same and it feels fun. And I'm filling out a quiz and the bottles are really cute, like aesthetically pleasing. And you do kind of chat with a nurse, I guess. And then they were very good at following up, like how they actually did follow up, like, how's it going? And then I just didn't really work. I didn't renew it. So just kind of like exciting to try for a month. And then you're like, well, I need something different. I don't know. So I'm very curious. I'd be curious to see their customer data. Like if someone signs up, like, are they a customer for a month, for 2 months? Do they have customers that, you know, have been there for years? I've never been a long-term customer of any of those, especially when it's like an issue I'm dealing with, not something like clothes or makeup. But
I think they provide, a lot of those companies provide a good catch net for the easy fixes. Whether it be acne or for clothing, it's like, okay, if you have a body type that just works with any clothes that I provide you, you're going to be happy, right? Or if you're generally good looking, or you're just lazy and you don't want to buy clothes, which is a lot of the Silicon Valley male population, right? And so I think it's designed very well. And I have plenty of friends who use those companies and they are happy with them. And then you have plenty of people who are just one more step more interested, and they're then disappointed. But I think that is the goal, right? You have a blanket template like these companies are trying to do, like the medical system attempts to do, and a lot of people are satisfied with the bare minimum, which is great for those people. I would love to be that person more often than not, where ignorance is bliss. But then when you have a real concern, I have a body type that I have to take my time and really shop, and it's hard to find, especially in the Midwest. I think Midwest clothing is not designed for me. I think I've accepted that. I need to shop in San Francisco or the West Coast. Jeans aren't skinny enough here.
Yeah, I mean,
No,
it depends, right? I think like I, for example, on that side, like I rent clothes, I'm like the same size and pretty standard, and like everything will fit me, which is awesome. And like, but yeah, like you were saying, like, or like our old roommate, like he's really lean, really tall. So every piece of clothing he has to tailor because he needs a slim, you know, torso, but then his legs and arms are really large. So it's like, yeah, there's it, like you said, it'll work for majority, and that's, they're trying to go for that quantity and just like make money off of that. But
and I do like outside of the effectiveness, like the issue that I had brought up earlier about it's feeling like diet culture, like this 30-minute regimen that clears your acne sounds so much like, oh, like, I mean, 5 years ago, I was on all the 30-minute plans where you order and you get like a pretty pink box with powder that you put into a milkshake. And like, you know what I mean? Like, it just sounds so similar to that whole, like it worked for that. And now we're doing it in skincare. It's like 30-minute fix, 30-day fix.
easy fixes.
It's like very
yeah.
tailored. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's tailored to women, right? Like it's pink and pretty.
There's both versions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I also love anything that's like fill out a quiz and we'll give you a specific product for your hair or whatever. And it does feel very like we want women's money. And that is what it feels like.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. But what's happened to me is I try all of them, but then I end up back with, you know, like certain brands that I just know work, like whether it's like makeup or hair or whatever. But
yeah, I think reliability you can't replace, right? My parents are two very different shoppers. Like my mom, she likes to get little trinkets and everything is very cheap and easy to find. Whereas my dad will take his time and hunt for something of high quality and want to use it for 2 to 3 times as long. And I think that makes a difference. And with health, like Isabel, you're talking about diet stuff. It's so true. I mean, if you spam people enough, you will catch them at a vulnerable stage where they're willing to try something like this. And I have recently bought clothes off Instagram and have been thoroughly disappointed with them. But at the time, it looks great, right? And you see so many Instagram just people too, before you get the ad, and everyone looks good. And then you get this and you're like, okay, that looks fantastic. It can't go wrong. And you know it's going to be cheap quality, but you get it anyway because it's 11:30 at night on a Tuesday and you should go to sleep, but you're not for some other reason. And this is going to be the fix for everything.
I was very happy with my kittens pole dancing shirt that Instagram just fed to me based on my algorithm.
Yeah, it's hit or miss. Sometimes they are very catered. But then going back to
it's still bad quality. It's just like, we know your legs, here are them together.
But going back to I think with clothes, for example, you know, if you get a cheap sweater and it doesn't look good, like, you know, oh well, you know, you learned. But if it's something around your health or what we've been seeing now with, I mean, this has always been a thing, but like these diet fads and the recent one is like this fast that everyone's doing. There's almost like that pressure. You see the ads and then you see Gwyneth Paltrow talk about it. This irks me so much. And then all my friends are doing it and talking about it at the brunch table. and you feel this pressure, like I'm so against it, but I go on the site and I'm like, should I try it? Like, and it's a weird thing where you're so against it, but you're like pressured to just try, just like do it, you know?
Or
So
even
it's
if,
kind of
yeah,
constantly fighting against that.
it's that pressure. Or if you're trying it and it's not working for you, but you see all these ads about how amazing it is, then you feel like you're the issue, right? Like that's the secret of diets, is that they always fail, but you don't think it's the diet that's wrong. It's me. So the same thing can happen with any product that you're like, I always, every time I want to buy something on Instagram, I go to the comments, I see how many, um, and a lot of times it's like, this is a scam, don't buy it. And like, I run away. But a lot of times you see like, this is amazing. I've been looking at like lash serums, like for growth or whatever. So I like, now I have 5,000 brands right on my Instagram, but like you have to go in, and if you see everyone commenting like how amazing that is, and then it doesn't work for you, a lot of people internalize that and think like, well, it's a me thing, it's not a product thing.
Yeah, you don't recognize like, oh no, this is actually like, it doesn't work in general, or
Yeah.
like I should just eat balanced diet or whatever.
Now I have a question. I think when you compare female and male fashion evolves much slower, and it stays fairly constant, and maybe things get more tapered over time and more tailored, but women's fashion changes quite fast, right? And it could often be cyclical, or just out there. Do you feel that when there's a new trend, do you feel the same thing, Nuria, that you were talking about, where everyone's trying it or everyone's wearing it, and it's like you don't like it and you don't agree with it, but you want to just try it?
That's a good question. I wonder how Isabel feels, like she's more with the trends to be.
I'm just trying to be a Gen Z.
I almost feel like I am more of it. You know how they say with like products and stuff, there's like the first movers, early adopters, and like that's, I am definitely not. I don't think I'm one of those. I think I'm more in the middle of like, okay, the new trend is like bell bottom jeans, and by new, these are coming back from like the 70s and 80s, right? Like these are just kind of recycled. They look a little better in my opinion, but I'm like, I don't know about that. I kind of have to wait, and I'm almost like behind. By the time it's been like a year or two where people are wearing like bell bottom jeans, now I'm thinking of buying ones, you know? So
I don't
I'm
have any
more
skinny
of a,
jeans anymore. No skinny jeans for me.
yeah, I'm a late adopter on a lot of those. And I think it's also like my age. I feel like, okay, I'm 30. I don't need to be doing what the kids are doing and wearing bucket hats. Like I don't, I feel like, okay, I have my like work clothes and I don't need to be all trendy and stuff all the time. So I think there's less pressure for me on the clothes side or fashion.
But you were talking about this, like you weren't even trying to get the dewy look, like even all
no,
those
and
things.
I think again, to even just touch on what we talked in the beginning, it just wasn't the thing to do when I was in my like 20. It is a more like the younger kids are caring about that more, and like the more fresh face, like no makeup. I think for me, I was like experimenting with like makeup that looked maybe less natural, or I think there was probably more on the diet side, like paleo and Whole30, and like that was what people would talk about when we were at lunch in the office, right? Like what diet are you being, like
Keto.
vegan, keto, like all of those. And I actually never did any of those, but there was like definitely like, should I be doing those? But for me, it was like not worth the effort to like change my entire groceries and like eating habits just to be paleo or keto. I was like, so I'm just lazy about it. But anyway.
And also the thin privilege that we,
Yeah,
it's like
exactly.
if you're fat, like you're gonna feel that pressure a lot more.
There's maybe more of an incentive, right? Like
yeah. And when I say feel fat, I mean feel fat. Like you can be skinny and feel fat. Yeah. I do want to ask, what, to bring it back to acne, like what part of your life do you feel acne affected you the most? Was it self-esteem, relationships, like public image?
Definitely more like self-esteem or like internal thoughts. Like I don't think it affected my relationships. I don't think, even though it feels like for me, if I see a sister pimple, I'm like, that's the thing I'm looking at when I look in the mirror. I rationally understand that like my friends and family and like people around me aren't being like, oh my God, I can only see that. There's a lot of times, and like Andrew would be like, I think you look fine, you know, and obviously he's trying to be nice and he's not as observant sometimes, but I'd be like, how can you say it's fine, right? Like for me, I understand that. So I think it was definitely more an internal battle, and like, but at the same time, I wouldn't say it like prevented me from doing anything or like feeling. It was just like the days that I feel like it was bad, I didn't feel as confident in like the way I looked, and I would have preferred to maybe like not see anyone that day, or felt like I had to really cover it up, right? Like a lot of makeup. For example, I've never used actual like foundation, like makeup in my life until a year ago, because I felt like I needed it. So that was like a big change. But yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of what else. But I think like my relationship, like the
you
most
mentioned
things like people.
You mentioned earlier that you kind of did feel like, Andrew, don't look at me when I'm.
Yeah, I think it's just, I just felt, I'm just like not my best, and I don't want you like hugging me right now. It feels weird.
Okay, you say that it's so minimal, but that like when you say I didn't want to see people that day, I didn't want him to hug me.
But like when, I don't know, it sounds extreme, but it wasn't. I just had the thought. I was like, you know, I'd rather not hug, or I'd rather not see people. But it wasn't. But then I would get over it and go to work.
Okay.
You know, like it wasn't. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you know how I feel like you like honor those feelings.
Yeah.
But
And I think, and I know people definitely didn't care, right? But I did in this past year have a couple comments from like friends I hadn't seen in a while, and this was at my bachelorette party, and that kind of stuck with me. They were like, in a very concerned, thoughtful way. They weren't like, what's wrong with the face? They were just like, maybe I said something, or maybe they said like, yeah, like what's going on? Like what's happening, right? But I'm like, oh my God, they noticed, right? At that point, I'm like, shoot, it's kind of something that's like, sometimes it feels like it's the elephant in the room, right? Like, I'm like, I have these terrible breakouts. I'm like covering it up. I'm like in a group of like 10 girls or whatever, but I'm just pretending they're not there. And then when someone says, oh yeah, I did notice, like, you know, are you taking, you know, what's going on? I'm like, oh no, like Roos is up. They notice. So then it kind of bursts the bubble, you know, because no one really tells you like, oh, look at that ugly pimple on your face. But when you notice, they notice, that is a difficult moment.
Yeah, there's a phenomenon that we talk about a lot in surgery where people come in and they ask, okay, I have this pimple on my face, or I have this mole on my face. Can you get rid of it? Like, yeah, I could get rid of it, but then you're going to have a scar there. And you naturally see normal things like pimples and moles in other people, and you overlook them because you just see the whole semblance of the person. But when you have a scar, it's something stands out. And I think when there's individual pimples, we rarely wake up happy and then see the pimple, freak out, and then have an awful day. It's usually goes together with overall, I'm not feeling great, something's off, and then I'm having breakouts. And then when you have a lot of them, or like what you're talking about, Nuria, when you have where it's like, okay, it's not just one pimple, it's this whole complexion, something is going on, then it's different, right? And then you know that there's something that you want to work on, or you know, fix. And you hope that nobody notices till you fix it. But it's always on the back of your mind, I think.
Yeah. I did have one last question before closing it out, but I don't know if Kumar, you had anything else you wanted to ask.
I do wonder, now you are post-wedding, you're post-honeymoon, what's your skincare routine like, and what's your makeup routine like? And going forward, what are you going to do?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm definitely probably gonna keep doing Retin-A forever, since you've recommended and keeps me young. And then I would say like it's pretty much stayed the same. I've added, I actually met with a cosmetic dermatologist at Kaiser as well, just to see what she recommended. She recommended some other, like the salicylic acid toner thing. It's like a pretty strong one. It leaves my face kind of tingly. and then this like very hydrating like mask to put after it, but I don't use that every day. So I'm kind of like, I feel like I do that when I feel like I'm breaking out a little more. But I feel like the pressure's off timeline wise. So if I like see a breakout or something, I don't like freak out. Cause now it's like, okay, there's no due date for fixing it. I did, change my, my birth control. So I'm like thinking that will also fix it in the long term. So yeah, I mean, I feel like my routine stayed pretty much the same. I did discover a hydrofacial. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's this like pen thing that puts, I don't know, something into your skin. And I did one right before the wedding and my skin felt really good. Like it felt so hydrated. I came back and my neighbor was like, oh my God, like, did you just like have like a workout and a shower? You look dewy, and I was like, no, I just had a facial. They're like, thank you. So I kind of think I want to do that. They're pretty expensive. So they're like $200. So I think I'm going to try to do them every like few months.
Can you buy the pen thingy? I bet you can.
I don't know, but I don't know. She seemed like she knew what she was doing. And it's also, I think it's like a self-care like ritual. Like it feels good to go and do it. And I don't know if I want to be doing it myself.
I'm pretty scrappy.
And yeah, I think working from home, I haven't really worn any makeup like almost at all, except for when I go out. And now I'm going back to the office. So I feel like I'm going to start wearing makeup like every day, being a little out more in the sun. So I feel like I need to figure out like reapplying and all of that. So it'll be interesting. I think like it culminated like end of the wedding, honeymoon, came back, and it's almost like now I don't have this thing and we're kind of open, back to social life, back to work. People are going to be seeing me every day. So I'll let you know how that goes. Because for the past year and a half, I've also been working on it while being able to like have my clean face every day and like, I don't know, I guess not worry about the routine or time constraints or anything like that.
How do you feel about going back to work and the whole idea of wearing makeup?
I'm kind of just more like, I'm hoping it's just more the time. It's another thing to do that's going to take time. And I think I haven't really like, I don't know. I feel like with makeup, I'm constantly trying to find new products that like look better. Like I don't love my foundation right now or whatever. So I think it's just more like, okay, now people are going to see me every day. And yeah, I'm not too worried about the makeup or skin as much. I do think that I've kind of, because I'm not wearing makeup and on Zoom, like people can obviously tell. So I also don't want, but I also think it's professional for me to wear makeup and not go barefaced to work. And I also like, I'm in a leadership position. I'm managing a big team. It's almost like I want to look older and like more established. So I feel like I need to like look better than like on my sweats in my Zoom. But yeah, there's a little bit of social anxiety for sure that comes with us. Like it's also going to be a very different office to get back to. That's other issues, but like, you know, a lot of my team isn't there anymore. They're saying they moved or they're staying at home and they're going to assign random desks. So I'm going to have different people next to me every day. So yeah, I'll let you know how it goes. We'll do a follow-up.
At least two.
Yeah. Okay. I did want to ask you, and you don't have to answer, but I have a theory that you would have been too powerful if you didn't have acne growing up.
I don't know about that theory. Why do you say that?
Because you're a pretty popular cheerleader, student council. Like you needed a thing, kind of like Megan Fox with her toe thumbs.
I don't know how to answer that. I mean, no, but I kind of understand. I think like everyone has something is the thing is like, and mm-hmm. I think sometimes, and I don't even know, this is definitely not a good thing, but we've talked about this before, how like we grew up with our parents, like our mom telling us that we're perfect and we can do anything we want and we're so smart. And then later in life, when you realize that it's not the case all the time, it backfires and you feel shitty. So I think it's almost everyone has something, right? Like maybe it seemed like, oh, I'm pretty, I'm popular, I'm smart, I have friends and whatever. But like I was struggling with acne, I was struggling with other things. Like everyone has something they need to work on or are struggling with. Like no one's perfect.
Megan Fox has thumbs that are toes.
I know.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on here and talking to us. I think we like having like an interviewee, right?
Yeah.
This is fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, like our 3 listeners. No, I'm kidding. Thank you, everyone, for listening to our podcast. Follow us at Get Into Your Skin Pod on Instagram, and email getintourskinpod@gmail.com to have your questions and comments read on the podcast. Thank you. Bye.